let's get into it with a take that has certainly the ability to make someone look stupid, and that's SEC Michael Bratton went on the Paul Feinbaum show, and it's hard to leave Feinbaum speechless, but Michael did it today when he proclaimed that Texas A&M would finish higher than Texas when it was all said and done. For full context, he said that probably means 10-2 or 9-3 for one of, if not both of those teams, but he picked Texas A&M to win that rivalry game at the end of this season and finish higher in the SEC than the Texas Longhorns did. Now, Trey, we're Aggies. We root for A&M here. We have certainly been accused of drinking the Kool-Aid at times. We've been accused of being hypercritical at times. So I feel like we've been a good bellwether for the A&M fan base. This shocked me when I heard it because I'll be honest, even if we are doing what's the Doctor Universe deal in the Marvel, what's his name?
Doctor
Uh,
Strange.
Doctor Strange. Even
Yeah.
if we're doing multiple universes, to me there aren't that many that end with an Aggie outcome that's better than the Longhorns, who I have as a top 2, maybe 3 national championship contender.
Is it all the way the Infinity War scene where he like spazzes out and says there's like 300 million outcomes and how many do we win? One. Um, I don't know that it's that far, but man, all I know is Mitch, you and I got to take in the baseball game Saturday night,
We did.
and boy, I don't know about you, but that fired me up for this rivalry to be back. I'm not gonna lie, I found myself in the contingent of the A&M fan base that was more annoyed with Texas joining the SEC than excited, just because of all the drama that they bring with them. And we saw a lot of that on Saturday night on display in that baseball game. But, I'm pretty fired up after attending that in person. The two fan bases coming together, A&M coming out on top in a really hard fought game. I hope that's a preview for what we get this fall. I hope that that's a fun back and forth game that A&M ultimately wins at home as a selfish homer. But this take, man, I don't know. It
Take.
really does seem, when you look at the talent that's on the field, I really do think the rosters are comparable. And I think you can break down position by position. I think there's going to be edges that Texas have. There's going to be edges that Texas A&M has. But coaching, Mike Elko's still too much of an unknown.
Mhm.
Never coached a game in the SEC. We, as a head coach, we know that he did really well at a place that he had a lot of talent discrepancies at Duke, but hasn't coached a game in the SEC. Neither has Steve Sarkisian as a head coach. So a lot of wild cards in the coaching department, a lot of wild cards at new faces at both of these places that they're having to replace their dudes from last year that
Mhm.
helped them out to bring that program, in Texas' case, bring that program out of the doldrums of the Big 12. So it's going to be fascinating. I think the hard thing is, and honestly, as we've dove into preview season, this is like a rant that I'm not going to let go. It's going to be almost impossible to determine who had a better season, even within conferences, because of these unbalanced schedules. And if you look at the schedules, I don't think there's any sane person that would tell you Texas has a harder schedule than Texas A&M this year.
No.
The road trips are much harder for Texas A&M. A&M has more difficult games at home than Texas does. Texas dodges the vast majority of the top of the SEC, with the exception of Georgia and Texas A&M. So it's going to be really hard for A&M to finish above Texas, even if they do beat them in November, and even if they do have an objectively better team. I'm not saying that I think 100% either of those things are going to happen, but even if those two things are true, Texas might still finish ahead of them just by virtue of an easier schedule.
I think it's possible that it could be due in part to the easier schedule. I think a lot of it also for me, and Garrett, maybe you agree with this. Like you look at, yes, the roster turnover for Texas, they have some critical players to replace at key spots, but at A&M, even though, and I wrote this in the team preview, which will be released soon, even though the names walking out the door are more impressive than the production they put on the field, Texas A&M still overturns a large majority of those starters. I'm talking offensive line, defensive line. in the secondary. The secondary is almost entirely new. You got to get a healthy quarterback in Connor Wegman through the whole season, right? The offensive line was not good last year. And although A&M in our minds has done a lot of the right things to push this program forward, to say that in year one that Mike Elko leads the Aggies to a better record than Steve Sarkisian, who has all the momentum in the world, who is coming off of what should have been probably a college football semifinal victory had they been able to pull it off against Washington, and then just getting whoever they wanted really in the transfer portal. I mean, it's going to be fun to break that down in the written preview and obviously in the video side as well. But you look at what position groups they needed to take talent from, and they went out and got one of the best available in the portal at that position. I, I would love for Mike to be true, but oh boy, the math ain't mathing for me.
Yeah, and as a math teacher, I'm gonna let you know that math. I'm gonna need him to show his work because I don't see it either. Man, like, because look, here's the deal. Yes, Texas got just about everybody they wanted out of the portal that Lane Kiffin didn't want, right? Something like that. Like Lane's just the portal king right now. He comes to your campus and takes your 5 stars. But like Texas got a lot of great guys in the portal. A&M did pretty good in the portal too. Obviously not as good at the top level, but they replaced a lot of stuff that they needed. There's a lot of stuff that were problems last year for A&M that they did replace. Look, I could sit here and I could make you a case for why Texas A&M is going to be a lot better this year. I can make you a case for why Texas is going to be worse, right? There's reasons for either of those two takes to be true. I don't think that I can make you a case that Texas is going to finish worse than A&M right now. Like there's always the weird hypotheticals, right? What if Quinn goes down game one and Connor Wigman emerges and he's, this massive contender for Heisman or something? Like anything could happen technically, right? We've seen crazier things happen. Heck, TCU went to the national championship game a couple years ago. Anything can happen in college football. I guess it's possible. But just sitting here trying to say, okay, I want to be honest about what I think, honest about my evaluations. If Texas A&M goes 9-3 this year, that's a fantastic season in year one for Mike Elko, and Texas will still probably finish 10-2 at worst. And look, you could find a way to get a bunch of losses on the schedule for Texas, right? There's a way that you could find it. You could say that they barely squeaked through some Big 12 stuff last year, which is kind of true. They squeaked through a couple of those games in the Big 12 last year that they shouldn't have escaped with. But at the same time, this is still a team that has learned how to win. And you could say squeak through, but I could tell you that that's experience and learning how to win games, especially when you didn't bring your A game and when you didn't bring your best product to the field. And so, again, for me, I just look at this and I think that, yeah, like Texas is probably going to have a really, really, really good season. And as good as A&M could be, if Mike Elko, if Connor Wigman, if the defense, if the secondary, if the offensive line, that's a lot of ifs. If all those things go right, maybe A&M's really good. They still might barely just squeak out a 9-3 or a 10-2, which might just tie Texas. Like so again, like I don't think this is a indictment on either side. I'm not going to say like, hey, Texas is awful or A&M's amazing, but I just cannot make I cannot make the argument that A&M's finishing better right now in honest faith outside of some, again, kind of crazy situations and the Doctor Strange 1 situation where this comes out the right way for A&M, right? There's just a lot of situations I don't see it.
Man, if you're a Texas fan new to the SEC and you just haven't followed Mike Bratton on Twitter and don't know his shtick, he is very much a guy that will rile up a fan base intentionally.
Yes.
In case in point, his tweet earlier today, guys, with Quinn Ewers and Connor Wegman discussing the Texas football cover. I love this. A Heisman contender and Quinn Ewers. And if you're listening on the podcast, the cover is Quinn and Connor Wegman staring each other down with rivalry renewed. I loved that tweet. I thought that was hilarious and just a great welcome to the SEC and welcome to SEC Mike for Longhorn fans.
He's the anti Josh Pate, right? Like he
Oh yeah.
will
Yeah.
poke
He does
the
not.
bear. No, he wants to make you mad, and then he'll have he's a great football mind, very intelligent guy. I enjoy listening to him, but he gets you to engage with him sometimes by poking the bear, whereas the Josh Pates might stroke your ego, and that's how they start that football conversation. So, I'd love to know what you, the Jimmies and the Joes, think about this. I think 9-3 is the absolute floor for Texas. I think it's the most realistic ceiling for Texas A&M. So, could the Aggies with a win over Texas, find a way to end up ahead of them in the standings? I think if everything goes wrong for Texas, that's and A&M does almost everything right. That's how we get there. Is basically how I'm viewing this. But very interesting take. Is peak preseason content. I mean, we're not even to SEC media days, and Mike is in summer form.
Case in
Well,
point, Mitch, he at the top of his Twitter page right now still has his post-spring power rankings, and he has Texas at 3 and A&M at 8. So whether or not he actually believes what he's
yeah.
saying on the Feinbaum show, it's who knows.
Well, he got Feinbaum to be speechless, which, like I said, feat in and of itself.
Gracious him! How about